I in the mountain. I am nature's oldest temple. My glaciers and streams provide the water you drink. My forests, your wood, your clean air. From up here, I see how you've come to treat this world. You used to recharge your body and soul in the calm of my forests. You once climbed my peaks, seeking enlightenment. Now you take what you want and contemplate only your own gain. Open your eyes while there's still time. Because there's one more thing I see clearly. The cliff you're on, and the rocks below.
Welcome back, friends. The science is the quantitative part of why we're here, and it's the graphs and the charts that explain why we do what we do. But what we're about to demonstrate is the heart piece of why we're here, and it is the thread that connects us to, a lot of us, to the call of this service, and the way that we show up without ever the same funeral twice for families. Our funerals are dramatically customized to the needs of each family. And so understanding that we're not dealing with a death in this moment, I do want to give just a heads up that we're going to be having actors portray death. And so I just want you to be aware of that ahead of time, because part of this, it could be emotional or sensitive. And so without any further ado, some of my favorite humans are going to lead us through this next part of this sacred demonstration. The Deathwives are a team of educators based here in Colorado who democratize death care by making it available to the many people. They have brilliant curriculums that are growing every day, and they're some of the educators who I think are hitting the messaging right on point. And they are delivering something that the Venn diagram of the hearts of the Deathwives and the natural funeral is a beautiful overlap. And joining the Deathwives is Katey Houston, who is with Return Home and is their specialist. And Katey's background is informed by being a commercial and corporate funeral restoration specialist. And Katey's team informed me that she got into the funeral service very early and participated in her first embalming at 16 years old. So Katey's got a lot of experience in doing this a conventional way, and is now going to help educate us on a natural techniques. And then I also would like to thank Ray, who's from the Natural Funeral, who has volunteered graciously to offer to be the decedent who's being cared for. So with no further ado, the Deathwives, Katey of Return Home, and Ray of the Natural Funeral, welcome.
All right. Hopefully you can hear us.
All right. Hi, everybody. So you've learned the science, and like we were just talking about, now it's kind of the heart. We both came from a very traditional funeral background, and when I started really focusing on family-led death care, that's when I saw the magic happening. That's when I said, this is what I need to be doing. I need to educate people that this is their right. I need to help people remember something that we've done for centuries and centuries. This is nothing new that we're about to show you. This is the way we've done it for many, many, many hundreds, forevers. We're just going to give you some tips and let us begin. Oh, do we have a
Clicker.
thing? Next slide. We don't have a clicker.
There you go.
All right, well, I'm Lauren. I call myself a green funeral director because when I was a funeral director the last few years, I really advocated for a natural burial, no embalming, as much family involvement as possible, including doing bathing, doing dressing, because that's their loved one. That's not my loved one. And it's always an honor to be able to care for someone's loved one, but that's their person. That's their space that they can really heal. So, gosh, 3.5 years ago, I met, well, not 3.5 years ago, like 7 years ago, I met Erin Merelli, who's a death doula, who is the co-founder of Deathwives with me, and she'll be coming up later to help us with the ceremony. But she said, people need to know about this. How are you going to change the funeral industry by just helping the families that come in? We need to tell everybody about this so that they know to ask for this when they go into the funeral homes. So for the last 2.5 years now, education has been my sole purpose in life, because we're not going to have change unless people ask for it. I can preach about how wonderful this is over and over again, but until the families, the consumers come forward and say, that's what I want, that's how we're really going to change how we do death in America. So.
Well, that's me and my dog Chuck. I am a licensed funeral director and embalmer. I started in England, as Seth said. My first embalming was at 16, so formaldehyde has been running through the blood for some time now. I was definitely one of those, I love the smell of formaldehyde in the morning, embalmers. I definitely loved reconstruction. That was my jam. And I thought coming to return home, I had put that kind of life behind me, and it was just going to be, I wasn't going to be involved in that care of people like that anymore. But actually, I've managed to use my dark arts for the light, and have incorporated a lot of that into what we do at Return Home with giving the power back to families to care for their own loved ones. Yeah.
All right, so why choose natural body care? I feel like I could preach about this part for hours. I think we have a whole 2-hour class where I really do talk about why you should choose this. But it is required for certain dispositions. So if you are choosing natural organic reduction, you're not going to be embalmed. I do understand that with alkaline hydrolysis, you can be embalmed, but it's not, really viewed upon. With green burial, natural burial, again, the body won't be embalmed. And there's a lot of misconceptions that you think, well, you can't have a viewing, you can't do anything if the body's not embalmed. One of the first things I heard was, a body's not safe to be around if they're not embalmed, right? And that can't be further from the truth. And so when we educate families, that also gives them kind of that freedom, that opportunity to say, can I step into that space if they're safe to be around? And yes, that's exactly what we're trying to educate so that they ask for this. A unique thing about this is that it matches families and their needs. Everybody has different stories. Everybody has different lives that brought them to this place. Having ceremony, having body care is a way to bring those traditions, to bring that love and, sacredness into this space. And that's only something that you can create with the family, with the people that loved this person. Of course, there's the environmental concerns. I have mixed feelings about formaldehyde itself. It is not safe to physically be around. I think that that's just a fact. And so when we inform families that that's not even required by law, I think that that's something that blows their mind. But also, again, when we explain that this is actually safer for the environment and overall for the decomposition process, and when we start talking about all the natural stuff, it just makes sense. For me, the first time I saw an embalming, I was 19. And I didn't know what to expect. I had learned about it, seen it, but in the room watching the process, I saw how invasive it was. I didn't expect to see, it was a 90-year-old woman. I didn't expect to see this procedure being done to her. And as I was watching this, I said, oh my gosh, I don't ever want my loved one to go through this. And why? She wasn't even having a viewing. I just want to say that. There's a lot of funeral homes that still will do full embalmings for a cremation. So I was watching this invasive process take place, and it just almost broke my heart, to be honest. And so when I learned that we could just
your choice of essential oils. We just learned that we both hate lavender, so please don't use those for us.
She hates lavender too. I know.
Mouthwash. We have a lot of bacteria in our mouth, and it can be really good to get mouthwash on a swab and clean that mouth out so that bacteria growth doesn't start there.
That's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to slow down decomposition. We never want to stop it because that's our best friend. We want to return to the earth. But for this process, so families have that time, we want to do whatever we can to naturally slow that down. And yes, we have a lot of organisms in our mouth and our throat. And so there's nothing wrong with a little mouthwash. You can have fresh breath after life too.
So you're going to want cooling products. You're going to want dry ice if you can access it. Gel packs are easier. They're also moldable, so you can mold them to the places on the body where you need to keep the person cool the most, which is going to be this area and this area is mostly what we say. Cotton balls and Q-tips just for cleaning out the mouth and those kind of things. Ace bandages and scarves come in when you're trying to close someone's mouth or keep their mouth closed at home if you choose to do that, or if we choose to at the funeral home. Eye bags and coins, you can speak more to that.
Yeah, and I'll talk about the scarves and eye bags because when I work with families at home, one thing I like to tell them is rigor mortis sets in about 2 to 4 hours after death, typically. So in that time, I'm not rushing families to close the eyes and close the mouth, but if we can do it before rigor mortis naturally sets in, that's it. That's setting the features. That's an embalmer's term, I guess, where they close the eyes and the mouth, and they do it in different ways. This way, we are naturally using what our body already does. And so after death, I'll often have, we use a scarf. I don't know if anybody has seen those old-timey pictures, but it works. You just tie a scarf underneath their head and make a little bow on top, and that's going to keep their mouth shut, their jaw shut. And after a few hours, once that rigor mortis sets in, you can take that scarf off and their mouth stays shut. And it's the same thing with their eyes. And all of these things, most of you probably already have in your house. So it's not like you need to go out and prepare for this. But we like to use either tea bags, something that's weighted. But in the olden days, they used coins, right? We used it to pay the ferryman to take us to the other side. But I also think that it was a way to keep the eyes closed. So families can get creative. I even have heard of flowers on the eyes, which I think is absolutely beautiful. You may do that today. And then we'll talk about bandages if needed, because after we die, we don't have blood pumping anymore, but we'll still have bacteria where we have open wounds. So that's what we're trying to do. Anywhere that there might be any sort of living organisms or bacteria, we want to focus on those areas so that the family has as much time as they need with their loved one.
So simple steps in preparing the body. If you're at home, elevate their head and upper body in bed. There's a couple of reasons for this. Their blood is going to settle, so you're going to have staining, and you preferably would like that to be on the back of the body, not the face where you're going to see the person. Also, if they've eaten or drank recently before they passed away, stuff sometimes comes up. So if you elevate, you kind of negate that happening.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, with the closing of the eyes, you can really use anything. And naturally, after a few days, the eyes do open. That doesn't always deter families from still caring for their person. That's still their person. So we'll talk about kind of comfort levels and being honest with families before they come in to see their person. But this will keep their eyes closed for a period of time. And I think kind of families prefer that. Yeah.
For mouth closure real quick, I've been getting really targeted ads on Facebook, on TikTok, because I've been getting this ad for like this collar that you put on and it keeps the mouth closed. I'm like, you know who I am, and that is creepy.
Yeah, as a hospice nurse too, it was brilliant. It almost looks like, you know, when you get in a car accident or something and you have those foams that you put around your neck.
Yeah.
It's like that, but it uses the elevation or the pressure of our own body to close the jaw.
And then cleaning orifices is completely your comfort level. At the funeral home, we should be completely cleaning our people. As soon as we get them, they should be clean and dry. That is a basic level of dignity that everybody deserves when they come into our care. At home, it's whatever level you're comfortable with. Likely, if your person's at home, you've been caring for them and maybe changing diapers for some time, and so cleaning them is not that big of a deal to you.
Yeah, and you just want to make sure, again, I can't say it enough, anywhere where we have any sort of bacteria, we're going to want to clean those areas up. And when we are washing the body, we'll talk about it's really important to dry all those areas, clean under the creases if you're keeping your person at home. If you're doing this in a funeral home, they do a great job at body care.
Okay, special cases. This is kind of my little embalmer area. So a lot of people end up having an autopsy. If they die unexpectedly, they die in an accident, something like that, they will have a Y incision here and usually a cranial incision across the top. And that does not mean that you cannot see your person. That does not mean that you cannot have your person at home. It just means there needs to be a little bit more preparation. And that can be done by us at the funeral home. We can do autopsy repair. I've done autopsy repair at someone's home before. It's literally just suturing someone up like a doctor would, pretty much. But we can also use things to kind of cover those, to disguise those things so that families know they're there. You just don't maybe want to be looking at it the whole time. So a crown of flowers is probably the one that we use the most, and people just look beautiful with flowers up there. It's hard, Seth, I'm sorry, to cover bald men's incisions. So you might end up with a crown of flowers or a hat.
Yeah.
People with hair, it's super easy to just style hair over those incisions. Not a big deal at all. Traumatic accident. For me, this is a important one, something that I thought was not going to be a skill that I was not going to use anymore. We require embalming usually for extensive restoration because it dries tissue. So the tissue is then dry for you to work with. Guess what else dries tissue? Vinegar. So I've done extensive full facial and skeletal repair with just the use of vinegar. But again, we don't have to go to that level. You set expectations of what the family is going to see. They're well aware that their person has been in a car accident. They're well aware of what they look like. If you set expectations, that family is going to be just fine. Just fine.
Oh, I guess we can add too. There's a wonderful grief therapist called Dr. Alan Wolfelt, if anybody's familiar with him. But one of the things he says is, even in a traumatic accident, that is still their person. And maybe you won't be able to physically see them. Maybe they do need to be fully draped because the family isn't comfortable with seeing them in the condition they were. Maybe they were, not found for a few days. There's still opportunities for their people to spend time with them, and that is really important. That's the whole reason why we do this, is because we know how important it is for families and friends to spend time with their person. So even having just a hand exposed can mean everything to a family. So it doesn't, if you feel or the family feels like they aren't comfortable viewing the whole body, it's still just as meaningful to be able to see them, to lay their hands on them, to hold their hand, even if they can't have the full experience.
Yeah. So how many of you in here are funeral professionals? How many of you offer unembalmed viewings and family participated death care?
Good.
Awesome. For those of you that yet don't, it is pretty simple to start. You don't have to start big. Just listen to your families. They will tell you what they want. If you're just comfortable with what we call an ID view, which is 20 or 30 minutes, just try expanding that for a little bit longer. Just try allowing maybe your family to help casket a person. Like, start with baby steps, but be prepared with basic supplies. That list we had, you probably have all of those things in the funeral home already, but be prepared with some kind of go bag or bug out bag or something that you can just grab and go to the family's home and you got everything in there. Start at the funeral home. You don't have to do it at a family's home if you're not comfortable with that yet. You have the supplies at your funeral home, you know your prep room, you know the areas that you are comfortable having families in, start there.
I love what Recompose did. I just have to give a shout out to that, having the whole room, the space set up with everything they need. We're going to kind of do some reverent body care here in a minute with how the natural funeral does it, but really just to have a space set up so the family has everything that they need is really all you need to do. And like you said, all these items you can buy at 7-Eleven if you need to.
It's really helpful to designate a person. If you come into natural body care with an attitude that, like, I'm just doing it for the hippie, like this ain't a real thing, it's going to go away, then your attitude is not helping that family at all. So designate a person that works for you, that is excited about offering this to a family, and it will go much smoother. And I'd like to take a minute that I make people look drop dead gorgeous.
So how to advocate for it? Well, you're here today, so I feel like you're already advocating for this work that we're doing. But there's tons of places you can connect with that are already doing this advocating as well. The National Home Funeral Alliance, I was on the board of directors. I think that they're constantly doing amazing things. They're very education-based, there to support families and community members and give you all the tools of how to have a home funeral, how to do this natural body care. Deathwives, of course, I have to give us a shout out. We love education. I think that there is just so much power that we can take back in death care, especially here in America. And that's what we want to do. We want to give people voices. We want to give them the information. And everybody has the heart. Once they learn this information, they have the heart. And that's what being an advocate is taking this message out.
You can reach out to us at Return Home. You can go into a funeral home, pull up my TikTok, and be like, Katey said I can do this.
Yeah.
You're welcome to do that. Yeah.
The Green Burial Council is also great resources. They have tons of education, printouts. They have pamphlets when I was first starting. The National Home Funeral Alliance and the Green Burial Council, they have tons of freebies, and I would just be like, here. I'd go to my library. Did you know? Now I have pamphlets that I can hand out too, but they have tons of information.
Your local funeral provider. You go there and you talk to them and you tell them this is what I want, and if they say we don't offer that, then you find the next one until you find someone who will allow you to do this so you're prepared for when it actually happens.
And if they say, what's that? We don't know what to do, send them our way, and we will educate them on how to do this. Because the more we talk about it, the more I realize that I don't think funeral homes are so against this. They just don't understand it. They don't understand that it's okay. I've had so many funeral homes say, well, that's going to traumatize the families. When I was working at a green funeral home, we didn't do any embalming. I was there 2.5 years. I never once had a family say, I don't like the way they looked. When I was working in a corporate funeral setting, and we had many embalmings, I can't even count how many times I had families say, that doesn't look like my loved one. Why do they look waxy? Why is there so much cosmetics on them? We don't need that. I promise you. I wish we could show you some of the lovely clients that we've worked with, because they look just as beautiful as they did a week later, as they did the day that they died. So there's a lot of misconceptions there, but there's a lot of people to support and educate those funeral homes.
Yeah. And to be your own advocate at need when you've had a death, get an advocate, get a doula to help you, get a funeral director that you know that is for this, that can help you find someone who will help you. And then the big one is take your business elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Your money speaks.
Yep. And if you are super pumped after this conference, start educating your community. Like I said at the beginning, we're not going to have change if people don't ask for it. I can talk forever. You can have 1 million TikToks and everybody loves it. But unless people realize that this is available for them anywhere that they live, that they want to have human composting available, we need to use our voices. So you need to go out and tell people so that they can use their voices to change the way that we're doing things.
Quick question. How many people in here think that embalming is required for anything in more than one state? Oh, you're all smart. Alabama is the only state that requires you to embalm to cross state lines.
There are no
Yeah.
embalming police, though, I've read.
It's true.
I'm not saying that we have to break laws here, but I've never heard of the embalming police.
I've never met one, but the thing is that people will still tell you that it is required. We had a family at Return Home just 2 weeks ago who brought their loved one in from North Carolina. They flew 13 family members from North Carolina to Washington for a service because every single funeral home they called in North Carolina told him embalming is required. You can't have a viewing here without it. 13 people flew all the way to Washington because they're idiots in North Carolina. Like,
It can be a funeral home policy, right? It can be their policy. It is never a law. And so you can let them know with your big voice, well, I know that that's not a law, so I'm going to go elsewhere. That's a stupid policy.
so before we get into actually doing this body care, we want to open up the floor for question and answer real quick. Anyone want to start?
I'm curious to know if any of the clothes or bandages remain on the body when it's put in the capsule, or if there's things that are more like muslin wrap or hemp or linen or something that you could wrap with and then put in, or do you have to take it off?
So the question was, is there any clothing on the body when they go into their vessel for NOR? And I can answer to Return Home. We have a compostable garment that is made of pressed cotton. It looks like a fluffy bathrobe. It's made like a hospital gown, so it's open at the back so we can just tuck it so we don't have to manipulate people too much. That goes into the vessel with the person. Nothing with any kind of weave can go into our vessels. If it can survive a washing machine, it's going to impede the process in our vessels.
And I think with, natural burial and water cremation, they're usually not dressed. And then with green or natural burial, you want to be in a material that is going to break down, so hemp, silk. Same thing with if you are going to have to use any bandages, they can be organic materials. Any other
Yeah.
questions?
What about like medical stuff, like IVs and needles and stuff like that?
That's a good question.
If your person is home on hospice, hospice can come out and remove those things for you. Your funeral director can remove them, or you can just leave them, put a bandage over them. Anyone that comes into our care, those devices are removed. But if you're not comfortable doing it, or you don't have someone who can do it for you, just leave them.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. The family can leave them, but before the process takes place, the funeral home would remove any foreign objects. Any other questions?
Yeah.
In the case of severe decomp, how do you handle odor and
Expectations? Oh, with severe decomp, how do we handle odor and disinfection? So washing people that are severely decomposed is just generally not possible. And a lot of times physical viewing of them is not possible, but you will have families that will say, no, I'm going to see my person, and that is their prerogative. For us, we work with essential oils to cover that smell, but we also set expectations. Like this, there is going to be odor. It's still their person. And as far as disinfection, generally families do not touch their people when they're in that state. So we don't worry about it that much.
Yeah.
I have two questions. So, over here, Lauren.
No.
So,
I'm like,
so assuming that you work in a traditional funeral home and you get a first call from a home hospice death, how would you, as the funeral director or the student taking the call, maybe let the family know that they can keep their loved one at home for a period of time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always just let families know, because sometimes they'll be like, do you need to come right away? I have somebody coming, and I always let families know, you can spend up to 24 hours with your loved one before they even have to come to the funeral home if you're not choosing to keep them. If they do want to have a home funeral, then I usually walk them through the steps. But it's easy just to say, you know, you have some time. Do you have family that needs to come visit? Sometimes people, especially in some conventional funeral homes, it's going to cost a couple $100s to be able to view them later, right? If you're going to have a big 4-hour viewing. So I let families know if you need to spend more time, now's the time. They're already in your home. You have as much time as you need to spend with them. And I think that's almost one of the first things I'd always say is, how much time do you need? You have all the time that you need before we have to come out there.
For me, it was actually really hard when I started at Return Home because I was a traditional funeral director and I did not know how to ask someone if they wanted to be there while I bathed their person. So one day I think I just blurted it out, like, do you want to be here for the bath? And the mom was like, absolutely not, that's creepy, bye-bye. And then she called me the next day and she's like, yeah, you know what? I gave my son his first bath, I gave him his last. But we've taken away from people the vocabulary and the social ability to say yes to these things. So you got to give it to them and let them sit with it for a little bit.
Yeah.
So on a first call situation, it's usually for me, are you ready for us to come? Because you can spend more time if you need it. I don't have a team ready right now anyway.
And then Katey, can you talk a little bit more about how you use vinegar?
Yeah, so for me it's a spray bottle simply, and you're going to do it the day before you want to do the reconstruction, put the person back in refrigeration, and then you can do all the normal things of wire and drill for skull repair, and suture with dental floss and like an intradermal suture for external repair. It doesn't dry as completely as embalming would, but the cool thing that I have learned, so with embalming, the person sets, is what we call it, right? Once the fluid has taken effect, they set. And then if there's a wrinkle there, that wrinkle's going to stay. If they're not embalmed, you can manipulate tissue and it doesn't wrinkle and it can smooth back out to exactly what it looked like before. So for me, it's been kind of a little bit better this way, a little bit worse this way, and you just kind of have to work with the process and the tools you have available to you.
Is this something that you build into just the general cost of your service, or having an experience with someone there guiding you and with products and everything? Is that something that you charge for separately?
For us, it's included because every single person's going to get a bath anyway. So if the family wants to be there, it's no extra sweat for me. For them to have kind of some kind of service with us where they spend more time with their person, there's a slight additional charge. But the bathing or the, that kind of care we don't charge for. We do charge to come to the house and do that kind of care with them, to come back and replace ice packs daily, that kind of stuff if they're not comfortable doing it.
And as a home funeral guide, I typically charge for the education, but then it's the family that takes over. And so if they need guidance over the phone or me physically there, I can, but I don't charge for that part because they're doing everything. Now it's different once they go into a funeral home setting, but when they're in the family home, they can do everything themselves. They can purchase most of these products for maybe like $30. And they really just need a guide, somebody to help them remember the steps. And we're going to show you those next. All right.
All right.
So, do we have any volunteers who may want to help with this next part? I'm going to invite Erin Merelli up here. She is my co-founder and Deathwife. She's a death doula and ceremonialist, so she is going to lead the way in some body blessings. Oh, would you like to come join us? Oh, okay, come on up.
Our person needs a family.
Hi, Ray.
Hey, you guys.
It's so nice to meet you.
nice to see you.
Dying to see you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you want to have a seat?
Yeah, thank you. I've actually. I'm gonna.
Come on up here. Yeah.
Sorry, you guys. I'm feeling a little off.
Feeling okay? You don't look so great.
I've been having some heartburn, and I don't know, my chest is really hurting. Just give me a second. Thank you. Thanks for coming up. Oh, fuck.
Would you study CPR?
She good? They good.
Their DNR was somewhere over there, so. Well, welcome, dead body. We're so sorry.
Not dead until somebody says they are. We're supporters.
All right.
I'm at
3:45.
3:45 p.m.
3:45 p.m.
Actually, it'd be 15:45.
So kind of the first steps that we were talking about is we want to make sure that their head is elevated. And we have a lovely pillow underneath here, so that's a great step. Can you remove your glasses, dead body? Is that okay?
That was a yes.
Okay.
Does he?
Cannot, but I can.
You no longer need to speak.
We're also going to remove shoes, and normally you're going to remove clothing, but we are not going to do that because this is a kids show.
So we are going to begin by inviting the friends up here. Oh, you are going to take off the shoes. That's great.
About this.
Oh, good.
They said they were loose. They're not. Right?
Sometimes changing a dead body is funky.
There's nothing more awkward than changing clothes on a dead body. So as we prepare for their final spa day, just like a massage parlor, we're going to cover their body up. This is dignified, no matter what. You know, this is a final act of love. And so we're going to create a space for a family to walk in and kind of take over. So first, we'll invite everybody to wash their hands. You can just place your hands in this bowl here. Right then. All right. And if you two want to come over here. When we do this kind of blessing, we're not going to be bathing their whole body. What the family is doing is going to spend time, I almost want to say it's more of a ceremonial bathing. We're not putting them in a bathtub. We're not doing a deep rinse. We're washing down their skin. Typically when people die, they're not dirty. I just want to say that, depending on the kind of accident, and if they've gone to the coroner's office, that's different. So we're going to start off by doing a little blessing. And if you guys want to, take some oil here. We are going to start at Ray's head. Just follow her lead.
I bless.
Test.
Mm-mm.
No?
There you go.
All right. No. I bless your hair that the wind has played with. I bless your brow, your thoughts. I bless your ears that have listened to our stories. I bless your eyes that have looked upon us with love. I bless your nostrils, gateway of the breath. I bless your lips that have spoken truth.
And as we move down the body, we're just going to take the towel or the sheet or blanket and have one body part out at a time, just like you would at a massage parlor.
I bless your neck and throat. We will remember your voice. I bless your shoulders that have borne burdens and strength. I bless your arms that have embraced us. I bless your hands that have crafted wonders. I bless your heart that loves us. I bless your belly, storehouse of the body. I I bless your knees that have knelt at sacred altars. I bless your legs that have carried you. And I bless your feet that walked their own path through life. We give thanks to this body for its service.
So you can see it can be something as simple as that. And it's just an opportunity for the family to bless and love this body one more time. So at this point, we are going to shroud our dead. Are we going to take off their microphone first? Yeah. This is the shroud? Okay. Has anybody shrouded a body before? Oh, you guys have, yeah. Sure. One thing I like to tell families is you can have your own shroud if you have, your great-grandma's quilt, or I know of people who have crocheted their own burial shrouds for themselves. So this can be as special as a family wants it to be, but there are as many companies that offer shrouds as well. Or in this case, it can also be a simple white cotton organic sheet. So we're not going to cover our lovely dead face here today because the family still wants to have some more time. So typically with shrouding, we're going to, yeah, you got the feet covered. We're going to have the feet pulled up first, and then it's almost like swaddling a baby. Has anybody swaddled a baby? We're having a little burrito here.
It's a burrito.
It's a burrito. So you're just going to gently tuck underneath. And this is something that the family can definitely help with. You're wrapping them up in their last blanket. You're going to use ties. And there's typically 2 or 3. But you're going to do one at the legs, the knees area, the torso, with the arms.
Don't feel like you're doing this too tight. You really can't, and you want it to be secure.
And they can't feel it.
Too tight.
They're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still breathing. Do it too tight.
And, there can be humor in caring for a dead body. It's not an easy thing. They are dead. They don't work with you sometimes. And there can be beauty in humor when we're grieving. And so even if you think, oh no, something happened, oh the family, no, it's okay because that's life. And we're still living and mistakes happen. So
there's going to be people laughing at my tattoos for sure. That's okay. I'll give you permission now.
All right, so at this time, we have laid out Ray, we have blessed them, and now I think we're ready for their funeral. Come on down. So peaceful up there.
Thank you, Deathwives, and Katie and Ray for that demonstration with us. At this moment, we're going to move from what would be the conclusion of the natural death care and into what we would call a laying in ritual.